Draco, years ago, I knew a boy who made all the wrong choices. Please let me help you.
I don't want your help. Don't you understand? I have to do this. I have to kill you. He's gonna kill me.
Hi, I'm Joe.
And I'm Tiana.
And this is Next Door Villain,
a podcast where we uncover the villains to discover their humanity.
Hey, baddies! Welcome to Next Door Villain Podcast.
Today we're talking about your favorite blonde-haired kid, Draco Malfoy, from obviously the Harry Potter series. Very well-known character in perhaps one of the most well-known universes in recent memory.
Yes.
Forever.
I'm really excited to pretend that I am a Potterhead today, at least a little bit, and share some Harry Potter knowledge. At least I'll try my best. I am not actually a Potterhead, but I'm going to pretend.
I don't think either of us are really Potterheads, but it was a lot of fun to revisit the series, which I hadn't really revisited in years. I read the books. They were kind of coming out right as I was growing up. So between 9 and 16 years old was like right when all the books were coming out for me. And then the movies started coming out in the middle of that as well. So it was a really big part of my childhood, and I hadn't really thought about it in a long time.
It was a big part of a lot of people's childhoods.
Yeah. And we say this just to basically clear ourselves of the fact that we're probably going to say some stuff that's inaccurate about Draco. I know that there are people who are really invested in this universe and know a lot about him. We did our research, we done our best, but we're here just to kind of talk about Draco in more of a broad stroke.
Yeah, we've done a lot of research, and we're going to try our darndest. So don't turn us into a ferret if we disappoint you.
Yeah.
Although I think I would make a very cute ferret.
Yeah, it's not the worst thing you could be. Ferrets they seem to have a lot of fun running around doing ferret things.
Yeah.
Anyways, before we get started, I think probably the elephant in the room in this conversation is the author of the Harry Potter series, whom a lot of bad stuff has come out about. We certainly do not stand by her or any of her negative beliefs.
Yeah, I will say that we wholeheartedly stand by the trans community. We believe trans women are women, and I do not stand by the author's comments. So I just want to put that out there. But going forward, we're going to make this about Draco and about the story and not about the author. So that's what we're going to do.
Deal with it. That's
all the attention she gets. Just a tiny little minute.
I think that our listeners agree with us. And if you don't, maybe you're not listening to the right podcast.
Yeah. And feel free to reach out if you want to talk about it.
All right, so you want to let's dive in with our
okay.
Whenever we have to actually talk about something serious on the podcast, it's always a little bit awkward. You never know exactly the right thing to say. We're just two people trying our best here,
and I think we're doing okay.
Yeah, definitely at least okay, if not fine.
Yeah, I do want to thank a lot of the baddies out there, the listeners who have reached out. On Instagram to talk to us and have told us that we're doing a great job. Just want to let you know that it really does make my day. This podcast does take a lot of work. Depending on how much work I want to put into it, it can be the equivalent of a part-time job or more. So thank you so much for your support and for listening and for reaching out and, encouraging us. I'm speechless when you do it. So thank you.
Yeah, me too. But Tiana even more, because she puts in way more work than I do, particularly when it comes to the Instagram and Facebook. I'm trying to help out more, and I also am just really touched that y'all are actually listening to the podcast whenever I see something from you. It just, also is kind of the highlight of my day often.
Yeah. But also props to Joe for creating those graphics, especially when Joe was never a graphic designer in the first place. Did you do anything with art before that?
No, art has not really been my thing ever. So it's been a bit of a learning curve for me.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, you're doing great. So yeah.
Anyways, back to Draco. I'm kind of excited just to dive into this episode, but as you know, we always have to start with a 30-second intro to the character. We each give ourselves 30 seconds to try to describe the character as best we can in their entirety with absolutely no preparation. It's usually a hot mess, and you can now vote for us on Spotify right after you listen to the episode to say who did a better job with their intro.
Woohoo! All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
All right, Draco Malfoy is a young boy with blonde hair. He's a wizard who has to go to the Hogwarts school, and he gets sorted into the Slytherin house, which kind of has a little bit of a negative reputation. And he's kind of a bully to the other kids. He says mean things to them. He's got a couple guys who beat up people for him while he says nasty words to them. And that's basically Draco.
Yeah, that's basically Draco.
Boy, we've got our work cut out for us today on this one.
That's it. That's the episode. Joe said it all. Just kidding.
All right, Tiana. 3, 2, 1, go.
All right. So Draco Malfoy, he was born into the Malfoy family, which is very rich and prestigious. And he's a pureblood, meaning he was born to two parents who, one is a warlock, one is a witch. And that's very special for them. And he likes that very much. And he does not like mudbloods or muggleborns, and he bullies them a lot. He's kind of jealous of Harry. He also turned into a ferret once, and he also tried to do stuff for Voldemort and failed.
Time's up. That was really good. You got a lot of background information there.
Yeah, I tried. I didn't specify what he tried to do for Voldemort, and I think that's important to say.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk more about that.
Yeah.
I reached out on Instagram, which I do from time to time, to get a sense of what other people thought about Draco. And it was very interesting to me because I think Draco's one of those characters who, when you start to think about him, or like when you first see him, and like over the course of the movies, I guess, he felt very sympathetic to me. But then I started to think about him more and more, and he became less and less and less sympathetic. So when I put this call out on Instagram, I was expecting to get all these like deep dives into why we should have sympathy for Draco, and it was all very superficial stuff. So some of the responses were, Kara said that he had great style. Maya said he's hot and has good hair. Jen said that he is great at direct communication. Linda said she hates that ferret. She didn't have anything good to say. Ollie said he did the right thing when the time came.
Yeah.
Which we will talk about because I unfortunately disagree with that statement. But you can read it a couple different ways. Perhaps the most interesting response that I got from this Instagram poll was from Tiana, our mutual friend Alex, who says, well, I'll just read what he said. He said, Draco also tried to kill a man whose job is to practically facilitate the training of child soldiers.
Oh.
So, and he said,
holy smokes.
He said, imagine if at 10 years old, our school taught us defense against the Taliban, which I thought was a pretty brutal way to put it. But I think it's an interesting point that, yes, they go into Hogwarts at 10 years old and they go into this defense against the dark arts class where they're like trained in these attack methods. And he went on to help prove his point. The spell that Draco was meant to use to kill Dumbledore was taught to the students by their fourth year Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers, Mad-Eye Moody, who was not actually Mad-Eye Moody. He was Barty Crouch Jr. in disguise, but clearly not properly vetted by the school administration. Thought that was an interesting perspective to look at Hogwarts, to question their syllabus a little bit. Why are they teaching what they're teaching?
Yeah.
But anyways, back to Draco. Yeah. What do you got to say about him?
All of those comments that you shared, they're not wrong. The man is best dressed at Hogwarts, and that is good. But
I would argue he doesn't have a whole lot of competition.
True. Yeah, they're like 1990s style. And it does help a little bit to empathize with him, not to like give him more pretty privilege, but it is nice when, he's easy on the eyes. And I think that's a big reason why people like Draco sometimes, is because he looks cool. And I actually think I would fit in really well with the Malfoy family if I dyed my hair kind of white or blonde, because I think my paleness and maybe some like facial features would be similar. I don't know, because they're kind of vampire-y in a bit. I think they could have been modeled after that.
Yeah, and you really enjoy the rich lifestyle.
I mean, no, but they look so evil, and I can look evil. Well, or maybe I just think I can. But
yeah,
I did take the quiz online on which used to be on Pottermore, but now is on a new website where it's like apparently the most accurate sorting hat quiz, and I was Slytherin. I guess I'm similar in that regards, apparently.
Yeah, well, and Slytherin is not inherently bad.
Right.
Right, like, we see Slytherin as bad, I think, because we see it from Harry's perspective, and because the people who are in Slytherin at the time the story is told, like Draco and his friends, do a lot of bad things.
Yeah.
But important to remember that all of the houses have their pluses and minuses, and as far as character traits go. And just, for example, Godric Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin, the original like founders of their houses, were best friends.
Yeah.
So Slytherin's not inherently bad. Now, is Malfoy inherently bad? That, I think, is the big question on the table.
There is a quote that really captured my attention in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, where his mother, Draco's mother, Narcissa, she's kind of flabbergasted that Voldemort would ask her son to try and kill Dumbledore and to do this really dangerous mission. Of course, she has mother's love, right? So she thinks to herself, he's just a child. She says that. He's a child, or he's a kid. And I think that's really important to remember, that he is, 17 at that point?
Yes. 17 at best. I think that's a great point, especially when you look at the beginning of the series. And if you haven't in a while, go look at a picture of Draco in his first year versus his last year at Hogwarts. It is bonkers how young they are when they start at Hogwarts.
Yeah.
It's 10 or 11 years old that they're starting there. So a lot of the like evil things that he does, a lot of the like bullying and stuff in the first few years, it's like how much of that is really core Draco identity and how much of that is him just spewing out things that he has heard his entire life.
From his family, from growing up as a Malfoy.
Yeah.
He just internalized that hatred so much from growing up in it.
Yeah, that doesn't excuse that behavior, because you would think, or you would hope, that being out in the wizarding world and as he grows up, that he should be able to discern that the way he's acting is inappropriate. Or at what point do you start holding him responsible, because he should develop his own beliefs and be making these choices on his own. I don't know what point that is.
Yeah, I don't know either.
But I will say, like, there's definitely a time in the earlier books when he's using that phrase, mudblood, which is a particularly nasty phrase, which refers to people who have one parent who's a wizard and one parent who's a non-wizard.
Or two parents who are not wizards, and then they became muggle-born. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically anyone who's not pure.
Yeah.
Which has a whole lot of connotations in the real world, implications, whatever. We'll probably talk about that. But earlier on in the when he says it when he's really young, it's like he knows it's a nasty word. He's kind of reserved with it. He knows that he like can't yell it in front of anybody. as you get further in the book, or further in the books and further in the movies, he starts using that phrase pretty flippantly. It's like he gets bolder and bolder, and that was really scary to see, especially given like events of recent years, particularly here in the US. It was very easy to see a comparison between Draco and the way he was acting and the way that a lot of racists started acting when they felt that they had someone in power who had their backs. So like when Donald Trump became elected, all of a sudden these racists who were keeping quiet, maybe more under their breath before, felt empowered to come out and speak. And I kind of felt like that happened with Draco as Voldemort began to gain power, and it was really uncomfortable.
It also would be really shocking to me whenever he would talk about Harry's mother's death. I don't remember the exact phrases, but he would really rub that into Harry's face a few times, that his mom was not alive. And I would be like, holy smokes, like this guy, he is an asshole. And I think it's okay to recognize that, and trying to understand him doesn't justify his actions. Because that, I don't know. I guess I just know so many people.
He said like about Harry hanging out with Ron.
Yeah.
Something about like, hey, why would you want to hang out with this poor smelly person? And he was like, I wish I knew the exact quote, but he was basically like, oh, that's right, it reminds you of what you're living in your mom's smelly home before she died.
Yeah, like what the F, Draco? But then it gets to a point where like if I were a teacher, right, and if I heard, or like an 11-year-old kid or a 12-year-old kid, maybe even 15-year-old, 16, whatever, say that kind of stuff, I would probably start to get more angry at the parents. I would be mad at the kid, but ultimately I would say, we need to talk to your parents. Like, apparently they are passing on something to you. They are passing on really bad opinions onto you, and you're seeing them be hateful, and there's something going on with you, with your family. Mm-hmm. That's just what I would think as a teacher's perspective, like if I were at Hogwarts, which would be cool, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it does seem like Draco gets a lot of his opinions from his family. Like, and I wonder how much time he spent with his family versus people out in the regular world. You know, you get the sense like he was, I don't know, maybe this is stated explicitly, I don't remember, but I would guess he was homeschooled.
Maybe.
Probably the reason for that, and I would guess, this is all just speculation, but I don't think many Death Eaters send their young children to Muggle school. Because he says that phrase a lot, like the phrase, I'm going to tell my father about this.
Yeah.
Or my father will hear about this.
My father will hear about this. Potteh. Potteh.
So I do want to talk about his father a little bit, because he does seem to hold a lot of reverence for his dad. But I think part of it is that I think he's very close with his father, but I think that his father is not necessarily always the same back to him.
Oh, yeah.
We don't really see any specific evidence that he was necessarily like abusive, but
I think his father, or even family in general, put a lot of pressure on Draco. I think the Malfoys come from a long family of strict fathers raising intense sons to become the best and to carry on the family name well. Mm-hmm. Did you know that at one point in time, Draco was second to Hermione academically?
Yes, I did. He was very smart. And I think we often forget that, but in the early books, he came in as one of the top students. And it was a huge deal for his family that Hermione, a mudblood, would be better than him academically.
Just a stab in the heart to them. I think he's lived with that pressure for all his life. And I think he accepted the pressure because that's just how it was and how it is in the Malfoy family.
He wanted respect and love, and the way to do that in his family was to prove himself by the measures that they decided were worthwhile.
I feel like I can relate to Draco in some ways here. Draco, he's really loyal to his family. So loyal. Like, he wants to make his parents proud. He wants to be a good student at Hogwarts. He became prefect of House Slytherin. He served Voldemort and attempted to kill Dumbledore and almost lost his mind doing so that he can save his family from being blown to smithereens and to bring back some honor to the Malfoy family when his father failed in the previous year to do that. Even in the part 2 of Deathly Hallows, when that awkward hug happened between Voldemort and Draco, he even went to his parents when his parents asked him to come, even though he was very hesitant about that and really didn't want to join Voldemort's side. But he still went with his parents.
Why do you think he didn't want to join Voldemort's side?
You know, I think he was so used and abused by Voldemort in a way. Like, he almost lost his mind trying to kill Dumbledore, and then also Voldemort started treating his father like crap. And I think as Draco started getting older, you know, he started to realize that what he was doing and being on Voldemort's side was wrong. But it took a long time to get to that point. But we'll talk about that. So we'll get to that, okay? There's a lot of details there in Draco's development as a character. Draco is super loyal to his family. He wants to make them proud, and we see that. That's what I see, at least. You're giving me a look that maybe you don't see that. But I see it. I see some pretty intense loyalty here.
Yeah, I see that. I think the loyalty is misplaced. I think that Draco is a coward, and I think that his father is a coward. I think that's the overarching drive of Draco in this story, is that he's a coward and he can't stand up for himself. There's a bit of a debate online about whether or not Draco deserved to have like a redemption arc, because he didn't really get one. The author like flirted with the idea of making him sympathetic, but ultimately didn't really do a whole lot for him.
But Draco did do some things. I mean, yeah, it wasn't a full-on redemption, but...
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that he did really that much good without being motivated by cowardice. And he only did good when he was sure no one else would notice. Anyway, so we should talk about the Half-Blood Prince.
Wait, I'm not done with my point.
Sorry, I thought you had finished.
I'm not. Okay. Draco is really loyal to his family in being on Voldemort's side, trying to kill Dumbledore so that his family doesn't get blown to smithereens. He did have that need to like bring honor back to the family. But I do see a lot of loyalty to the family and a lot of need to be approved by them, by his father. I can relate to Draco in that I do feel intense pressure to do anything for my parents and to be approved by them, especially because they have done so much for me. And I'm sure Draco might also feel that way to an extent, where he feels like, oh, I really need to make my family proud. They basically spoiled me all my life. I was born into this very wealthy family, very powerful family. I need to do right by them. He probably thinks he owes them a lot. He wants to be approved by them so much that he takes their word for it that mudbloods are bad. And they need to be proud of their pure bloodness. And this isn't the same as what Draco's done, because I'm a muggle and I'm in a muggle world. But I try really hard to be approved by my parents, to the point where I don't show my full self to them, like on a regular basis. And sometimes it causes me to think like, oh, I don't know if my parents really know me to the extent that a lot of my friends do. Because I have this burning desire to be approved by them and to suppress parts of myself that they might not like. I think Draco goes through a lot of suppression of emotions and suppression of parts of himself so that he can be approved by them. I think he suppresses a lot of empathy, a lot of compassion. And I related to that. I don't think I'm suppressing compassion, but I'm suppressing other emotions. And then it does go into another point about occlumency. I have practiced trying to pronounce this word, occlumency. Occlumency. Draco is really good at the magic of occlumency, which means to like block people from being able to perceive your thoughts and emotions. You can even like suppress parts and emotions and thoughts to trick someone who does legilimens into thinking they're thinking something else. So he can suppress things to trick them into thinking that he's thinking something entirely different if they're trying to get into his mind. And he was really good at this because he practices suppressing compassion and empathy on a daily basis as Draco Malfoy, and in order to be a bully. And I think like humans, like muggles as well, are also pretty good at like suppressing emotions and parts of themselves in front of different people. And sometimes we just suppress so much that eventually we just break and we explode. We know that it's not really a healthy thing to do. Well, I think I would be good at occlumency, not only because I'm a Gemini moon, which means I can adapt well to other people's personalities and suppress parts of my personality that they might not like. I don't know if totally that's what a Gemini moon is about, but if you're into astrology out there, let me know. But yeah, I think I'm good at suppressing my true full way of being sometimes so that my parents approve of me. But then I'm not truly being honest. So I felt like I could relate to Draco in that way. So yeah, that's the end of my point.
All right. But you assume that there's a compassion and empathy in Draco that he's suppressing.
Oh, yeah. We think that one of the reasons why he was so bad at killing Dumbledore, well, not only is because he's a kid, and his magic isn't as good as an adult's, but is because on the back of his mind, he was having internal conflict about like whether it was the right thing to do. That was my interpretation anyway. So he had something back there.
I think he's a coward.
Okay. The Draco fans will turn you into a ferret.
That's fine. I want to argue that he's a coward and that he's also somewhat sympathetic.
Okay.
So to talk about the Half-Blood Prince, which I think is his most significant and prominent storyline among the entire series, where Voldemort asks him to kill Dumbledore. I think the reason probably that Voldemort is asking him is because he's the one who can get into Hogwarts, whereas none of the others have access. He's also entrusted with repairing I forget what it's called, the wardrobe that allows them to transport into Hogwarts ultimately. So Draco does have a lot of pressure on him this year to kill Dumbledore, and he tries in a couple different ways. He tries to poison him. He tries to get him to wear this cursed locket. Ultimately, he has to like face him down with his wand. And Dumbledore basically kind of lets him get into that position. But we find out in that moment that he's more or less motivated by what he tells Dumbledore is he has to do this because Voldemort is going to probably kill him and his family, I think was the implication there. I think that he's acting out of cowardice. And the reason I think that is because continually in difficult moments, he seems to do what's easiest. He always kind of diverts to what's going to be best for him. And he's not very brave himself. He's never the one putting up his own muscle in a fight. He's always letting someone else do it. He's witty with his tongue, but he rarely is able to back that up with anything substantial. So yeah, that's my thing. I think he's a coward.
Well, let's think about this, though. If he were to defy his parents and say no to trying to kill Dumbledore,
that would be difficult. He's too scared to do that.
So then what do you think would happen to him as a child, as a 17-year-old kid who is good at the dark arts, but has not, he hasn't graduated from Hogwarts. He's not quite the expert yet in magic. What do you think would happen to him if he told his parents, no, I'm on Harry Potter's side. I'm going against Voldemort. What do you think would happen?
I think he'd get killed. I think Voldemort would kill him.
Yeah.
So that's the difficult choice, right? That's the right choice, but it's the difficult one.
But you say he's a coward.
He's a coward because he always chooses the easy way.
By not dying? He's a coward because he chooses not to die?
Yes. He's a coward because, yeah, he's scared of death.
Okay, Joe, you go magically put yourself in the Harry Potter world, okay? You get born in the Malfoys.
Yeah. We're saying the same thing. I'm just saying that the reason is cowardice. That it is terrifying for him to make the right choice because of what it will mean for him.
Which means death.
So he does what's easy, which is what he's told to do and what he's...
I think. So you can call it cowardice all you want. Harry Potter can declare that he is against Voldemort.
Harry's brave.
Harry is brave, but Harry is not a Malfoy. Harry does not have parents who would drag him to Voldemort and dismantle his abilities and sacrifice him. Harry does not have those parents.
I don't think Malfoy does either. Narcissa loves Malfoy and would do anything for him.
Yeah, but...
Lucius is a coward and would give himself...
Yeah, Lucius is a coward.
Would give Draco up to Voldemort, I think,
yeah.
when it comes down to
and who do you think has power in that family, Narcissa or Lucius? Lucius.
My point is that the brave thing is to stand up to his family. The cowardice thing is to give in to it knowing that it's wrong.
So that he doesn't die.
Yes.
I think you're being too harsh. Right? I think you are being way too harsh here. Like I said, you go into Hogwarts, you're a Malfoy, and then you do it. You go stand up. You go do it. So
yeah,
you go stand up to Voldemort and then get killed.
Right, that's the brave thing. He didn't do the brave thing. He did the coward thing, which was do what he was told. Even though, like you would argue, he knew that what he was doing was wrong. But he did it anyways because that was the easier route than being brave, standing up against his family and Voldemort, and then probably dying because of it. And one of the themes of the novel in general, to help bolster my point here, is the acceptance of death. That Voldemort is scared to die and Harry is willing to confront it, which is ultimately like one of the reasons that Harry survives when Voldemort tries to kill him, is that Harry chooses life and confronts death without fear. But my point is that he was a coward and that being brave is a privilege that not all of us get to have.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain this the best way, but I do feel that, like, for some people, bravery comes easier for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And that we don't give as much leeway to cowards. We like assume that they're bad. And a lot of times their threshold for danger is much lower. And I think this is probably what you're getting at a little bit here, is that Draco grew up in a situation where he was with a family and in an environment where to do the brave thing or to do the right thing, there was a clear threat of punishment for it. And so he maybe developed his cowardice as a defense mechanism against getting hurt by stepping up and doing what actually is the right thing. So, I mean, like, in that sense, I think you can view bravery as a privilege that some people inherently have more of for whatever reason. Maybe they're just born with more bravery. Maybe they learned more bravery growing up in their environment, but for whatever reason...
Maybe they don't have the same pressures.
Malfoy doesn't have a lot of that inherent bravery. And it's, I think, a lot more work for him emotionally to do the things that Harry does. It's just like, I'm very shy, for example, and I'm very anxious. And for people who aren't very shy and anxious, a lot of times they're like, why don't you just do this thing? Like, when I was younger, I think I've mentioned this before, I was like kind of like, well, actually still to this day, I do not go up to employees at stores to ask them to help me find things unless I absolutely have to, because I'm so scared of it. I'll walk around the store for an hour and pass up many, many people before I'll talk to one of them. Whereas I have friends who I'll be with who will be like, to just walk up to anybody to ask them a question. And they'll be like, why don't you just walk up to them? Why don't you just do that? Well, because it's so hard for me. There's like this inherent difference, whether it's because I was born that way or because I learned it through some sort of process. I'm at a disadvantage in those instances. And there's nothing I can, it's just a part of who like, if I'm going to do that, it's going to take me a lot more work than someone else doing it. And that I think is happening with Draco. In order for him to overcome some of these difficulties, it's going to be a lot more taxing on him.
Yeah.
And I think we see that in Half-Blood Prince, because throughout the book, it was like shown in the movie, but in the book, it's much more clear that he's like being drained throughout, that he like looks worse and worse. And then it turns out that he is going to Moaning Myrtle for support and crying to her.
Yeah. And that's what happens when you suppress so much. You know, you go cry to ghosts in the bathroom.
Yeah, and he said that he was being bullied, which I don't know who was bullying him, or if that's just his perception of reality. Voldemort was probably bullying him.
Of all the people that you could get bullied by, Voldemort would be the worst.
Yeah, definitely one you want to avoid.
I would rather get bullied by Draco a lot. I'd like to be bullied by him a lot.
You'd like to be bullied by him.
Yeah. It's just because the actor is very nice.
Tom Felton.
Yeah. You know, he was on some talk show once and he was like, mind if I slither in? And everyone was like, oh, kill me, Draco.
Funny.
Cast that spell.
Have I brought you around to my cowardice point at all?
Yeah, you have. I need to be better at listening before I make judgments, and that is a huge part of empathy.
That's okay. I had a hard time getting into your whatever that other point you made was.
Just emotion suppression, you know.
Oh yeah. Actually, no. I totally agree that he's had to suppress a lot.
Yeah. It's funny because throughout the Harry Potter series, you kind of see him start to get more and more humbled as time goes on. That's kind of part of his development. He starts off as a super huge brat. He still is a brat, but then he gets turned into a ferret, and it all kind of goes downhill from there. And I think there's also a lot of jealousy going on. I think people already know that, but there is a lot of jealousy towards Harry going on here, because for a while people also thought that Harry was the heir to Slytherin because he was talking to snakes and whatnot, which is dope.
Well, Draco came into Hogwarts as like, he grew up incredibly privileged, and then he came in like with everything he ever needed. He came into Hogwarts and then like tried to join the Quidditch team, and then, you know, didn't make it because first years never make it. And then Harry Potter has never been on a Quidditch broom in his life, makes it on the Quidditch team in his first go. And he's always been academically successful. And all of a sudden this mudblood is doing better than him.
Yep. Yeah, it's really humbling.
He doesn't have hardly any friends. And then this like poor, pathetic, dirty, redheaded dude is
the worst part is that he's a redhead. Yeah.
is friends with the smartest gal in school and Harry Potter. And he tried to be friends with Harry. I think we forget that. But in the very beginning, he like introduces himself, but Harry then chooses not to be friends with him because he doesn't like basically the way that he's acting.
Yeah. He still knew Draco was bad news, which he was.
Yeah.
But I wonder, you know, what that alternate reality could have looked like.
Yeah, it could have been interesting, and I think it honestly only could have been good for Draco.
Yeah,
Harry's kind of a dweeb, but he's good at heart, and he's always going to be. And then Draco does sort of get a little bit of a redemption in the afterword, the sequel, which I did not read.
Yeah, I read a little bit about that, but
yeah. Honestly, it doesn't give him a whole lot. It just seems like maybe he's like a decent father now. The real question is like, should we? So now Draco's an adult. He seems to have turned a corner. Voldemort's no longer around. He has his own kid. He seems to be decent and cordial with Harry and Hermione and all them. Should we forgive Draco?
Man. I think I might be a little more forgiving. I mean, I still recognize that what he did was bad, but I think I'm a little more forgiving because, again, I remember that he was a child who grew up in the bad environment. Mm-hmm. So if he was an adult and he did all that crap, I probably wouldn't be as forgiving. And the fact that he kind of turned around, like he kind of did a lot of it by himself in a way. Like he still witnessed Harry fight for good. And he witnessed how awful Voldemort is. And it took time, but he did a lot by himself in realizing that what Voldemort was doing was bad. Like, it took a really long time, but I think he started to realize these things mostly on his own, just by observing things. And that's impressive. Like, a lot of people, they witness their parents do horrible things, and they don't even come to the realization that what their parents did was wrong. But Draco started coming to this realization and getting developed kind of on his own.
Yeah, well, because he's a coward and doesn't have a whole lot of a backbone himself, he seems to kind of leech the environment around him. So you do have to wonder if, given even more of a positive environment, that he probably would have been a lot different, because the good things that he seems to get seem to come from observing good actions. Like when he was about to die in the room of requirement at the end, and Harry went back to save him, even though Ron was like, no, don't do that. I think I would also forgive him, acknowledging the fact that I think forgiveness is more about your own self rather than the person you're forgiving.
True.
I think as long as he continues to do things in good faith, that we should just kind of move on. I think that if I was Harry and Hermione and Ron, or anyone else really from his school, I probably wouldn't be friends with him.
Right. I don't keep a distance. Like,
I don't.
You said bad things to me at one point.
No matter how good he gets, I don't think that they owe him anything just for being a better person now. If they choose to be friends with him, that's totally fine. But it's also understandable if they don't. He can find new friends in his new reformed life as a better person.
I still want to mention, though, just I think kind of for the listeners, so that they know that I've mentioned this, that sure, the way that Draco did things could be very cowardice because he didn't come right out and defy Voldemort. He didn't do it explicitly, but he did do two different things that helped them. One, he didn't kill Dumbledore. He lowered his wand. He did not want to do that.
I don't think not killing someone is necessarily like...
He made a decision to not fulfill Voldemort's request, even if it was hesitant and even if he was scared. And I will still admit that. The other thing is that he did not identify Harry's identity in the Malfoy manner. And that was also important. He did a few things very subtly to help Harry win at the end. And so still, I don't think that they owe him anything. But it's still important to recognize that he did some things.
Yes, I will agree with you on that. He did something.
A thing.
Unfortunately, not identifying Harry is like the most clear example of something specifically he did good.
Yeah. He also didn't know that he had power over... I'm probably going to say this incorrectly or explain this incorrectly, but he had power over the Elder Wand at one point and didn't know it.
Oh, right. Yeah, and that's all. Like, so there are a lot of weird things about the Potter universe that I don't understand. And one of them is it seems like you're supposed to kill the owner of the Elder Wand to take it over, but then it seemed like they were all like, oh, you just have to disarm them.
Yeah.
So Draco disarmed Dumbledore and then became in possession of the Elder Wand. And then Harry just grabbed it from Draco and then apparently took possession of it. And it was all very confusing.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah.
Are you a Potterhead out there? Let me know how this all works and why it makes sense, because I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
That's @NextDoorVillain on Instagram, Facebook, or Gmail.
I will also say one more thing.
Go for it.
I would much rather empathize with Draco, and it's much easier to empathize with Draco than it is to empathize with that lack of nose He who shall not be named Voldemort. Wow, I am really glad we are not doing an episode on him right now. Maybe we will someday, but all I can say is I don't have much. I can't see Voldemort's side very well. I mean, I can explain it, but whew.
No, Voldemort is one of those characters where we would just kind of have to talk about some like positive aspects of his personality that we can admire, even though we don't like how he uses them.
Yeah.
But it's real tough to delve into that one.
Yeah.
Draco, I mean, Draco was bad, but he wasn't an overarching villain. Like, he wasn't the villain of the series. He was often just a young school bully. And bullies do sometimes grow up.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they die. Just kidding.
Well, yes. I mean,
Sorry.
sometimes a lot of things happen.
Yes. Sometimes they don't grow up or develop into good people, which, and I apologize for having that dark humor there, but it seems, I don't know. We're talking about dark magic here, so I feel like it's fitting.
There's a lot of Draco-related music out there if you're interested.
I didn't know that.
Yep, a lot of Draco playlists. There's the band Draco and the Malfoys. There's a lot of songs just about Draco in general.
Wow, we should have analyzed one of those.
Ooh, maybe I'll make a Draco playlist and post it.
Or at least just want to see some of the lyrics, like
Draco Malfoy, Draco Malfoy.
That's it.
That's one of the songs. It's been stuck in my head. It's really catchy.
Yeah, because I just want to know if they mention anything that we're missing.
Yeah, well, there's a whole universe of like Potter rock bands.
Oh,
where they're like bands that specifically play Harry Potter music about the story. I forget what they're called. There's like a name for them, but it's like a whole thing.
That's cool. Well, yeah, go ahead, go rock out to some Potter music, you Potterheads.
Yeah. Well, this episode's getting rather long, so unless you have...
I will cut much of it. I mean, we do have a literary piece.
Oh, that's right.
All right, I am excited to introduce this literary piece written from the perspective of Draco Malfoy, written by María Ferenaz. Maria says, I'm María Ferenaz, a 19-year-old student from Argentina. In my free time, I like to write, read, and crochet. Great. Thank you so much for sharing your work, Maria, to allow us to get a greater insight into Draco. And here it is.
Life is unfair. Once upon a time, it wasn't like this. There was a time when people valued what was right, what was given. My family was important, one of the most important ones, and everyone knew not to disrespect one of us. We were leaders. We were on the right side of history. But then the war came, giving space to different ideas, pretending to shame all of us out of life, expecting us not to feel pride in our name. We were still powerful, but I knew there was more apart from our house. He wouldn't admit it, but my dad had to lay low. Though he prided himself in fooling the minister, having to do so was already bad enough. It was as if our power was only a memory. When he came, I tried to give him a hand. He seemed lost. I could see from one glimpse that he could do a lot more. He could be better. He just needed a push in the right direction. He didn't want to. I offered him a chance, but he didn't want to. He thought he was better than me. He laughed at my face for being at the other side, not knowing what it had meant to me. And over the next years, he just kept on judging, as if it had been an easy choice, as if I had made that choice. Living under a cupboard only to come out and find a world that loves you isn't the worst thing that can happen to a child. Living in a mansion and feeling the resentful eyes of the people outside collide with the destiny your family talks about, that's worse. He thinks I had an easy life, but the truth is that neither of us was free. I don't think he ever realized how lucky he was to have his duty to the good side. I'm not trying to redeem myself. I hurt people I wanted to hurt. I thought my blood was reason enough to deserve everything. I wanted to hurt him for being smarter, happier, for choosing those good-for-nothing as friends when he could have had me, for not showing me there was something better and blaming me when he should have saved me. Merciful Potter, always so weak, so good to others, but he never understood just how bad it was to be Draco Malfoy.
All right, thanks so much, Maria. Thank you all so much for listening to our episode. I know that there is a lot of information that comes with the Harry Potter universe, and we may have missed some of that information. We may have also missed some interesting points about Draco, because honestly, the universe and the story is so huge and vast that it's honestly a bit overwhelming for me sometimes. So if you have thoughts on Draco that we missed, please let us know. We'll share them out probably on our Instagram or something. Email us at nextdoorvillain@gmail.com. Also, you can also DM us on Instagram at nextdoorvillain. We're on Twitter at nextdoorvillain. We're on TikTok at nextdoorvillain podcast. Did I say we're on Twitter? Yeah, we're kind of on Twitter.
Everyone's kind of on Twitter still.
True.
Except me. I'm not on Twitter.
You are not on Twitter. I learned that the hard way. And rate us. Please rate us on Apple Podcasts. Give us 5 stars.
If you think we deserve it. If you don't rate us.
Be magical. Be hot like Draco. Be a snake.